Hi, fans of high quality entertainment. So, thanks to my buddy Glenn Kellaway from the basement, I'm going to be doing my very own combined ranking of my favorite 25 bands and solo artists. And before I start, and this was, kind of difficult because I left off quite a few great artists. Before I start, though, I just wanted to play this little bit that Glenn did here.
There's a whole bunch, Nishka Shankar, Ravi Shankar, Hiromi, a whole bunch of them I could name. I left them off if they're not really solid pop rock genre artists. So I'm going to do another list at some point. I'm going to compile a list of all the artists that don't fit into that category. So that's why some of these artists said that. Billy Strings, another one. I just left them all for another list. Anyway, so let's get started. First of all, I want to give an honorable mention. These people should not be left out. This band should not be left out. But it's not in my top 25. How the Mighty Have Fallen Off the Turntable and Shattered on the Floor in a Million Pieces. Just a distant echo in the night. The Beatles get an honorable mention. They did not even make my top 25. I'm just not listening. The 25 that I chose are bands that I'm listening to all the time. That's why they didn't make it. Not anti-Beatle. Just, if you're not sitting on my record player, you're not making my list. So, there we go.
So, before I start with my 25 favorite bands and solo artists ranked, some artists that just didn't make the top 25 but I absolutely love include John Anderson, Blind Faith, Canned Heat, Devo, Elvis Costello, Gene Clark, The Guess Who, John Lennon, Klaatu, Nectar, The Northern Pikes, Pink Floyd, Procol Harum, Queen, Randy Newman, The Rascals, The Residents, Paul Simon, and Steppenwolf, and a few others. Yeah, this was pretty difficult to do, but I'm pretty happy with this ranking. And, it changes at least every few months, right? So I wonder if the Beatles will be on my list. So number 25 is Creedence Clearwater Revival. I especially love Bio Country and, of course, Cosmo's Factory. And even Pendulum, I think, is a very underrated album. So they're number 25. Number 24, The Clash. Yeah, I bought The Clash's debut album, loved it right away. I was disappointed at the time of, the follow-up. But then London Calling was great, and Sandinista is still my favorite Clash album. And, all of their albums are good, except for, of course, Cut the Crap, which I don't even own. I don't really consider an authentic Clash album. It's not part of the box set either, so... But everything else by The Clash is excellent. So they're number 24. Number 23. Yeah, the Kinks. I love especially the early Kinks. Arthur, Lola versus Power Man. All the 60s singles, so many of them that are great. And then a lot of their albums in the late 60s, early 70s. I did buy their albums in the 70s, but I probably at some point need to listen to them again. So they're number 23. Number 22. Yeah, King Crimson. This is just recently. I've always loved In the Court of the Crimson King. Red is great, although I don't have it at the moment. I need to get it. But I was gifted some I was going to say King Gizzard, King Crimson albums like Lizard and a couple of others. And I'm just really seriously starting to, and Discipline is another one I have that I love. I'm seriously, finally, really getting into them. So they might be creeping up in the next few months. So that's 22. Number 21 is The Doors. Yeah, I've always loved The Doors. I think all 6 of those albums with Jim Morrison are basically at least 9 out of 10s. And I even love the first album without Jim Morrison, Other Voices. It's not as good as the other Doors albums with Jim Morrison, of course, but still, I really do like it. So they are number 21. All right, getting a little mixed up here. This is number 20. It is, Grand Funk Railroad. They've kind of fallen in the last year or two, but not because I have stopped listening to them. I still love them as much as ever. It's just I've discovered some other bands, so they've kind of fallen a little bit. But I love everything up to, I guess, maybe We're an American Band. And Shining On is okay too. So that's number 20. Number 19. The Monkees, yeah. Some people would, kind of scoff at them even being mentioned as a band, but they were, yes, studio musicians played on their albums, but sometimes they actually did play on their albums, especially Headquarters, which is basically all recorded by them, and they're talented, so they're on my list. I love. There's just so many great Monkees songs, so they made my list. Number 18. Black Sabbath. Yeah, love Black Sabbath. I'm just a fan of, the Aussie years. I know they released some great albums afterwards, but I don't know. I'm just so loyal, to the original band. It's like once Ozzy left, I was kind of done with them. And I even love, the final 2 albums that some fans aren't crazy about, Never Say Die and Technical Ecstasy. So, yeah. Black Sabbath. All right, number 17. The Who. Yeah, love The Who. My favorite, I love, Tommy. Who's Next is my favorite album. The Who Sell Out. I love all of their 60s singles. Quadrophenia, of course. And once Keith Moon passed away, I was done with them. I never bought any more of their later albums. Just no interest in them. So, number 17. Number 16. It's Can. Yeah. Just in the last year or so, I've really become a big fan of Can, especially Monster Movie. Monster Movie. Tago Mago, Future Days. But even their later albums are all, I like them. So, and they might at some point move up even a bit more. Great band. Okay, number 15. These are mainly bands, as you've noticed, but there are solo artists included in this. Another one I love is Neil Young, but he didn't make this top 25. Like I said, there's so many. Stephen Wilson and a few others. Number 15, Genesis. Yeah, I think they're slowly creeping up again. I finally really totally get The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. The last time I listened to it, I loved the whole thing instead of just the first half mainly. I love the Peter Gabriel era and even the Phil Collins era. One of my favorite Genesis songs from the later period is Keep It Dark, which I feel is a very underrated song. But they're just one of the greats. Number 14. The Rolling Stones. Yeah. I love a lot of their 60s singles, albums. Sticky Fingers is my favorite Rolling Stones album. I love their later 70s albums. Some Girls, Emotional Rescue. They're just one of the greats. So they're at number 14. Number 13. The Velvet Underground. Yeah, they would actually be maybe a bit higher, but they only released 5 albums, but I don't consider the last one without Lou Reed an actual, real Velvet Underground's album. But if they had released more, then they might be further up in my list. But yeah, they're one of my favorite bands. All right, number 12. The Moody Blues. Yeah, in the last couple of years, I'd never heard all of their 60s albums until a couple of years ago. And I love all of those, that seven run of great albums. And they're just one of the most talented bands for individual members. And yeah, so the Moody Blues at number 12. Number 11. Yeah, kind of between a solo artist and a band. It's Captain Beefheart, but it's, Captain Beefheart and the Magic Band. So it really is a band. And once again, I think if he had released more albums, he'd be a little higher in my list. And there's a couple of there's probably 2 or 3 albums I'm not crazy about earlier in his career, like Strictly Personal. But a lot of his albums, they're some of my favorite albums of all time. So here we go into the top 10. Blue Oyster Cult. Yeah, I love all of their albums. For me, they never released a bad album. Maybe, some are obviously better than others, and then all great songwriters, 4 of them sang, quite a few of the songs. So yeah, and Buck Dharma, the guy in the white suit in the middle, is one of my all-time favorite guitarists. So they're number 10, I believe. I might have screwed this up. We'll find out by the end of this, but it's close. So this is, I think, number 9. Led Zeppelin, yeah. Especially, Led Zeppelin 1, 2, 3, 4, and Physical Graffiti. Some of the greatest albums ever. And so they are number 9. Number 8. Frank Zappa, a solo artist. Well, even then, like I said, the Mothers of Invention. He's not just a solo artist. He has a band always behind him, but he's considered a solo artist for most of his career. And yeah, he just released so many great albums. Once again, they're not all great, but still at least a dozen or more great albums that are 9 or 10 out of 10 albums. Number 7. Lou Reed. Yeah. Similar to Frank Zappa in that he released a lot of albums in his career. And I don't know. Frank Zappa and Lou Reed, they're pretty close. I love both pretty much the same. But I think I listen to a little bit more Lou Reed than I do Frank Zappa. So that's why he's ahead. Yeah, I love Coney Island Baby, The Bells, I think is underrated. Street Hassle, Transformer, of course. New York, just so many great albums. Number 6. Yes, have dropped a couple spots, but that doesn't mean like I said, I love them as much as ever. And I almost included John Anderson as a solo artist. But yeah, I love, I'm one of those fans that love, I think their first 2 albums are underrated. They're 10 out of 10s for me. I love their later albums like Magnification and Key Studio, which I think are underrated. I love Tornado. My favorite album is Tales from Topographic Oceans. And then, Going for the One, of course, Fragile, Close to the Edge. Just great. My favorite prog band. All right. These are the top 5. Number 5. I know. It's the Beach Boys. I've been so obsessed with them in the past few months, and nothing has changed about it. I've just been listening to another act or two, just a bit more lately. But I will always be... they will always be in my top 10, for sure. And, I always loved their music, but it wasn't until the past year or so listening to, some of their late 60s, early 70s albums, Friends, Sunflower, Surf's Up, Holland. No, I don't think, if you just think the Beach Boys are a surf band or, for their singles, they were so much more than that. And as much as Brian Wilson is such a great talent, of course, one of the greatest, they were all very talented. Yes, even Mike Love, so they are number 5. Can you guess my top 4? Number 4. It's Ween. I had heard about this band for years and years when I used to make my own music. Very amateurish. No, but I did have some fans back in the day for my mainly comedy songs. But I used to have people say that, do you listen to Ween? This reminds me of Ween. Are you influenced by Ween? I'd heard of the band, but I'd never heard their music. So it's just funny that I used to be compared to Ween more than anything. And I just received 4 more of their albums thanks to my friend Gene. I just did a video in case you haven't watched it, unboxing, and got a couple t-shirts. Like I said, I've now got 8 of their albums. I listened to the 4 that were gifted to me yesterday. 1 I didn't care for, but that's happened with The Pod and Pure Guava. I hated those on the first listen. And so God Ween Satan, I listened to last night, And it was annoying, and I didn't really enjoy the list. But that doesn't mean anything because, like I said, on further listens, I might finally enjoy it. But the other ones, La Cucurucha, I can't say that, the mollusk and white pepper are amazing. So they're just going up and up in my rankings. They're one of the greatest. They do a lot of stupid, silly, even sometimes gross songs, lyric wise. But they can also do moving, deep, serious songs. They are just really, really, really talented. If you want to ever check them out, just like one of their more normal, really good songs, check out the song Chocolate Town, and then come back and leave a comment below. I can't believe there's somebody better than Ween. Number 3. Trying to remember who it was. Oh, I think I know. Yeah. It's Sparks. Yeah. Speaking of Ween, I was just reading up yesterday that actually Ween are fans of Sparks, especially I think Dean Ween, and they were kind of influenced by them supposedly. They're brothers, and Gene and Dean aren't brothers, but they call themselves Gene and Dean Ween, and it's kind of like a play on words or whatever, like Ron and Russell Mael, who are actually brothers. Yeah, I've been a fan of them for over 50 years now, and just a ton of songs that I love. And there's not one album that I dislike. So, and I've seen them with my girlfriend Molly the last 2 years live in concert, and they've still got it. They're just amazing. So are you wondering who's number 2? Are you? Yes, it's the solo artist Paul McCartney. Yeah, he's the greatest. He's my all-time favorite solo artist. And not taking anything away from John Lennon. It's just that sadly, John Lennon didn't have over 40 more years, of recording, or he'd be probably ranked very high too. But yeah, I love so many of his albums, starting with McCartney, Band on the Run, of course, London Town, Chaos and Creation in the Backyard, Flaming Pie, McCartney 2, Back to the Egg. It just goes on and on and on. Yeah, he's he's number 2. I could go on and on about him, and number 1, it's the friggin' Beatles. Yeah, unlike Glenn, I think I'm a little surprised, the past year or few months where Glenn's really been, just like he says, he still considers them the best band ever, I think, but he's just not listening to them. I've never stopped listening to the Beatles since 1964. I never, ever, ever get tired of them. I'm even thinking of doing a video asking, Beatles fans, do you ever get tired of listening to the Beatles? Because I don't. I would say probably once a week I listen to a Beatles album, and it always sounds fresh to me. And that's why the Beatles will always be number 1 for me. And that is it. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you think about my ranking in the comment section below. Bye.